get right into it. The 2024 WNBA Draft lottery has been decided. The Indiana Fever for back-to-back years have the number 1 pick in the draft. The Sparks have number 2. The Mercury have number 3. The Storm have number 4. As soon as the lottery was like not even done, but like as it was going, Martin Tate was like, "Well, Mercury has number 3." Oh yeah, that's kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting, and it has to be interesting, right? It definitely kind of throws a nice little interesting dynamic into what could happen. I think we can all assume Caitlin Clark, number 1 to the Indiana Fever. If she comes out, she does have one more year of eligibility left. But if she comes out, which we all think she will, she's going number 1.
No, I do want to talk. I want to get your take.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
You think she'll definitely come out like regardless, no matter what scenario? Is that your? And do you think she should?
I don't think it's definitive. It's for a number of reasons, right? I don't want to give like the cliche answer, like, oh, now with NIL, like nothing's definitive, but that is a factor. Like now that NIL exists, it's never definitive anymore. Whether these girls, whether these guys in other sports are going to come out now, especially for someone like Caitlin Clark who just signed to Gatorade a couple hours ago, earlier today, right? Like we have all this money. You don't have to jump right to the pros when you're making all this money they're making. I think she should, because it's the WNBA, right? And I don't think this is her. She'll be great, she'll be a really good pick. She'll be a really great player on the next level. Will she be number 1 in 2025? I don't think so. I don't think she'll be number 1. Like I think if Caitlin Clark wants to be the number 1 pick in the draft, I think she should come out this year because she has the talent for it. And I think she has a lot of interesting things playing in her favor, so to speak, right? And we've talked about this a lot behind the scenes. I think the absence of Paige kind of helped with that a lot. Caitlin Clark's ascension kind of took place at the most opportune time, right around the time when, Paige was out because of injury. There's a lot of speculation about whether or not Angel Reese is going to come out this year because she's going to graduate this year, but she also has another year of eligibility. So there's a lot of different moving parts and a lot of different moving pieces. I think Caitlin should come out because I always think players should come out when they're at their peak. Like I think you should 100% always come out before you risk any chance of the stock dropping, because anything can happen. And I'm not wishing it on Caitlin Clark, but we've seen it time and time again. A perfect example in football, Justin Herbert, in his second year in Oregon, he could have been the number 1 pick. He stayed, came out 2 years later. He was like the 10th pick in the draft. Still a really good player, but stock dropped a little bit because other players were on the rise. And so you don't want that to happen. We've seen instances of players getting hurt, right, when they could have come out on top and then they end up not. So I don't want that to happen to Caitlin Clark. She should come out when she's hot. And honestly, who wouldn't want to see Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston team up and play basketball together in Indiana? I think that'd be great.
Yeah, I wonder if that's incentive for her. Like, I look forward to hearing. I'm sure people are asking her plenty of questions about it. There's only so much she can say, but I wonder in her mind if that's incentive. Like, if she sees that opportunity to play with Boston as incentive to be like, no matter what happens. I mean, I think she'll play it by what happens this season, and that's what I always look at, because people talk about, like, I heard someone say she can forget about winning a national championship. Like, that won't happen. I'm like, are you sure? And I ask you the same question about what you just said. Are you sure someone now injuries? I'm with you. I get you can always get hurt. I get that. Mm-hmm. Stock dropping is possible, but we're talking about the women's game. We're talking about women's college. Caitlin is generational enough. She'll be the same player.
She is.
And unless you have a name for me that you project is going to get picked over her in 2 years as opposed to next year, I'm pretty sure she'd still be number 1 in 2 years. I mean, I don't know. I think she'll be the same player. I think injuries.
No, yeah, you're right. The only thing that could keep her from being number 1 is injuries, because the same players that she'd be picked ahead of now have the same extra year of eligibility for next year. So you're right. The only thing that would keep Caitlin from not being picked number 1 next year would be if she gets hurt.
Yeah, and back to the national championship thing. I think I like Caitlin is so great. I mean, they were in the Final Four last year. They were outmatched by talent, athleticism. Listen, I'm watching this closely. I don't have a definitive kind of opinion on this. People seem to think like definitively on her and Paige. I want to talk about Paige too with this. But I feel like Caitlin is very Iowa connected, very Iowa loyal. She got so close last year. Now, this is one thing I look at though, Marcus. Like, imagine if Iowa like loses, if they don't even make it to the Sweet 16. Like imagine if they fall under expectations, if they lose
Sure.
early, if they lose the conference champion. I mean, they'll go to the NCAAs either way, but like, imagine if they don't make a great run. That's where I'm like, okay, now let's watch her temperament and things she's saying and what she might do, because it goes one of two ways. Obviously, she goes or she leaves, but that motivation factor is always so interesting to me, because like if they lose early, that's a scenario, because it's like, okay, maybe she just wants to go pro. Season is long. The college season is long. And, she has a lot of pressure on her, even in college. Like, maybe it's time for the next step. She did all she could. If they go far, let's say she goes to the national championship and loses. Is that a scenario where, like, would she have to win the national championship? That's my ultimate question, is like, is that the only way she feels like ultimately, yeah, I'm definitely going? Otherwise, I feel like it's still up in the air, because there's
because
for her to do.
Because she can win a national championship and want to stay in school to go back to back. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's not.
She could, but I don't think that's. Listen, Iowa's not a back-to-back. I mean, if she's built that way mentally, she's thinking like, I want to back. I mean, that's a killer type mentality. But
I think
it's hard to repeat as national champ. That's hard.
It is. I think that's the difficult thing with it, is that there's a scenario where she's not even thinking about being drafted, and we're all just kind of like we're all just kind of doing it. And like, the plan is just for her to
like,
stay.
I'm going as long as I can at Iowa to go as far as I can. Like, she's been to the Final Four, so getting to the national championship is obviously the next step. Of course, she wants to win it, but listen, if she doesn't get to the national championship this season, I have reason to believe she may stay for another year, just from how beloved she is in Iowa and how it seems clear she wants to win a natty there. And it's pretty similar with Paige, bro. It's pretty similar with Paige, but it's different. It's different. So I don't want to.
I think
they have very different circumstances going on.
Well, I would say, if Iowa gets to the national championship again this year, it'll be the second year in a row.
Right.
If they lose again, I don't know if Paige, or if not Paige, I'm sorry, I don't know if Caitlin would want to try to go. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's difficult. It's so very difficult to get into the mind of a college athlete, because there are some people who are wired where I'm going to stay until I can get it. If I don't get it done, at least I'd give it my all, right? And maybe Caitlin's that. Maybe Caitlin is, you know what? I have another year, but like I've taken this ride as far as it's going to take me. Clearly, we're not there yet, and so let me just go. Let me just start the next chapter.
Yeah.
And there's other athletes who are like, you know what? I know that I'm really good at this. I just want to enjoy my college experience for as long as possible. Like, and I think the tough thing with Caitlin is, because her rise has been so meteoric and so sudden and so kind of like overnight sensation type of deal, we don't know enough about Caitlin as a like, we don't know enough about Caitlin to be able to even attempt to try to figure out what she's going to do. Do you know what I mean? Like, there are other players, like the Aaliyah Bostons, like the Asia Wilsons, who were great instantly. Like, we knew it instantly because of the program that they were at. And so we really kind of said, oh yeah, Aaliyah's coming out now. Like, she's ready, right? Caitlin is ready to go to the WNBA next year from a talent standpoint. It's hard for us to figure out if she's ready to go from like mentally, like you said, like mentally, is she going to disconnect herself from Iowa? Because she's the main attraction.
And think about it, like that's even a burden in itself, to just step away from that, to walk away, not just from an ego sense, but from the people who are actually in Iowa. They feed off her. They love that. And thank you for correcting me, because I forgot Iowa was in the national championship. So she would have to win the thing to feel like, okay, I did all that to do. But again, it's very interesting. I think of it both ways. What if they lose early, bro? Like that. I mean, she could check out. She could say, if they lose early, it's like, dang, they've been a top 5 team. They do look really good. I don't know if they look as good as last year, but they still look very good.
But I also think, with the parity, and we talked about this, earlier on and before the season even started, with the parity that exists across college basketball now. You have LSU, obviously, who's 7th, right? You have UCLA, who's undefeated. You have South Carolina, who a lot of people thought were rebuilding. They're undefeated at the top of the top of the country. Yeah. Texas, undefeated. Iowa does
the transfer portal is the reason.
Absolutely. NC State, undefeated, number 3, right? Then you have to think about other teams like USC, who's undefeated. Notre Dame, they're 14th right now, but they've been really good. Like it's not crazy to think they did lose to unranked Kansas State a couple weeks ago, in a close one. They got their win back a few weeks later, but like there's a lot of parity across the league now, where it's or not the league across the country now, where it's like it's not completely out of the realm of possibility for Iowa to lose before the Sweet 16 or even in the Sweet 16. I really think it depends on how they lose, not necessarily win.
That's a good point.
Do you know what I mean? If
yes.
they get blasted before, like if Iowa gets absolutely dusted, dog walked, like they look like they don't belong on the court, I think that would be in a situation where they lose early. That I think would be more of, okay, we need to come back. I can't let this be what you remember me by, being absolutely blown off the floor. Now, if they lose in a tight game, let's say they're the 2 seed and they lose in a tight game to like an 8-10 seed or something like that in the Sweet 16, it's like a 3-point game or something like that. That is something where it's like, I left it all on the floor. We still couldn't get over the hump. I think I'm ready to just take this clean break and move on to the WNBA. So I think it's not so much about when they lose in the tournament, because it's going to be how. If Iowa gets torched at any point, I think she's going to come back, because Caitlin Clark, we do know she's a competitor, and she's not going to want her last time stepping foot on the floor for Iowa being in a loss in a blowout. So that I think is more important than necessarily the win.
She's not going to go out just any type of way. And trust, oh my God, I am fearful of how nuts she will go in the tournament, because she is going to go.
She's going to go crazy.
All out, everything she can to, because it could be her last ride in the back of her head. That could be it. And a Caitlin Clark who's thinking this is my last shot at it, bro. She's gonna be swinging for the fences, bro. That's gonna look crazy.
I want to bring this comment back up.
Oh yeah, I did want to see.
Max Clark, we appreciate the comment. He said, "It's so weird to me how Angel is just left out of the top 3 draft picks, and it's Paige or Caitlin. How is Angel as low as 7th when she won a chip?" We've talked about this a little bit. We have talked about this a little bit. I think there's a number of different reasons. I think the first reason, the main reason, I think the thing that a lot of people are holding against Angel, as they hold against a lot of Black athletes, and I'll try not to get my soapbox here, but it's just a lot of people don't think she's personable. And sometimes that's kind of what it comes down to, right? Is now we don't think that. We love Angel. We think Angel's great. Angel's done a lot for the Angel Reese. Now I want to say single-handedly, because she hasn't been there by herself, but in a way, Angel Reese just by herself, especially in the run that LSU had to the national championship this year, did a lot for women's basketball. We're talking about her being in music videos, right? She got a court named after herself back in, like, she did a lot for the notoriety, women's sports overall, but especially her. I don't know. There's a lot of people who just don't think she's good enough.